What's up, y'all? It's me, Tasha C, and this particular video, which I don't know if I'm gonna keep reviewing the show, but I am in this particular one, is Havana Fix My Life with Saigon and Erica Gray, Jean. I keep forgetting her name, from Love and Hip Hop New York, season 4. Yeah, I won't be getting this video tomorrow, but like I said, shout out to my YouTube fam, my old new subscribers. If you're not a subscriber, click down the button below and like and rate, shape, card this video. So, all above. So anyways, here's the thing. It's so much to be said, but I will say this. We were starting to get in the root of the problem of both of them, of why they are where they are today and why we have this heated argument, why we're at this position. But to be honest, I wasn't surprised that the aftermath, unfortunately, was still going on in their circumstances. Because if you think about it, y'all, still, you have to think about, both of them individually wise probably need therapy or some type, motivational, life coach or something, continuously speaking to them, consistently, because 2 days or whatever, how this is edited, is not going to be fixed. Okay, this is their state of mind grade. Both of these people are in their 30s. You know what I mean? Not to say you still can't change your 30s, but I'm like, they're submitting that the patterns that they had since they was sitting there with baby teeth still in their mouth, you know what I mean, to now, is something, you just can't fix. It's sometimes it takes maybe a year, a couple of years, whatever, to really sit here and do this and realize what you have to change and what you do, because it's all about the individual, you know what I mean? So let's get into this, y'all. Now, we get a little backdrop. We kind of like, of course, Saigon, there has a little backstory about how he started getting, weird little, he was more so underground artist, really, since 2003, and a little background story, stuff like that. Erica, we pretty much, all we knew is that he met her, years ago, and they pretty much, excuse my take, but I do have disclaimer about them. It's supposed to be a fantasy video. They're pretty much love brothers. That was pretty much all it was the whole time and stuff, right? So the fast forward, Erica, I think, was the one who ends up calling Iyanla, and she, stops over. They meet at a hotel, and they're talking about her circumstances. But when they were talking about the day they met, he first was trying to approach her. Saigon was saying Brian. I'm going to say Brian because he was letting us know he was on the comms. He was more so on the comms side with Iyanla being there. And with Bill Cosby, coat and everything else. He was like more on the comms side. But now. So, on the other hand, he's saying when he met back at the club, he first was saying, "Excuse me, mister," whatever. And she just ignored him. As soon as he said his next approach, which was, okay, basically like, oh, hey, bitch, your ass must be fake, whatever, bitch, come here, bitch, I'm surprised this smack pen slap, but it's pretty much how this went. And she sat here, and 20 minutes later was looking for him. Like, she just liked that response indirectly, or thought that's what I should be treated, or thinking like, that mad mentality means he's going to be there properly later on in the bedroom. I don't know. I'm just saying. So, on and off for years again, they continue to sit here and have a fuck buddy relationship. Erica claims it was friendship, but it pretty much based on he didn't even know what her address was. We found out later on. So all it was pretty much fuck buddy, fuck buddy, fuck buddy. Okay, so, or friends with benefits. You want to be, without the profanity. So, later on, now one thing that brought up was, besides them already having issues that got passed on and what they went in, they, when they were kids and, the adolescents, adolescents still kids to me, but as far as adolescents to young adults to now, one of the things that also they're acting on, both of them around the time, they both said, both in talking to Iyanla at different times, were saying that they had lost their mothers, not too long ago, prior to when they decided to, on a drunken night, one of them times they were meeting up, had lost their moms, and they decided last minute to have a baby. Erica goes more into detail about which, I didn't know at the time, she didn't look well, she looked good, but, I didn't know that she was 34. At the time being. So really one of the main reasons she was having a child, because she was thinking like her biological clock was ticking, and so she was trying to get I don't know for whatever reason, but it was just the Saigon. It was Saigon or Brian. She thought about it. You know what? My biological, let me go ahead and have this baby if you're willing to do it, or I'll get the next dude who can't do it. Okay, tick tick. Okay, that's what she was thinking. Tick tick. And then on top of that, she sat there and was saying that because she lost her mom, and some of the words with her mother was before she passed was like, you know, when you have a family comes first and everything comes second. And then her father was a provider, but based on what she was saying, in my turn, for what I thought, she was saying he was more so a financial provider. It was someone that she didn't have, like, say, a personal, close, like, you know, daughter and father bond, or whatever case was. Like, she knew where her father was, but it was some distance there. Because even though both her parents in the households, even though Iyanla said, and we all know, that does not mean that everything's good just because you have two parents in the household, if it's not, you know, a positive environment. So, you know, because, you know, this is one of the things, you know, of course, she's getting the background information with both of them. It was more so with Erica than it was saying with Brian. I don't know why I keep on slipping same Saigon. Okay. So, anyways, sorry about that, that's the phone. We sat there and we realized that, you know, like I said, she has the self-esteem issues. You know, she went to Catholic school. Then she's, you know, now was doing these provocative photos. I think it was after Saigon, Stephen was born, which is the name of their son that her and Brian have together. And she's doing these poses and stuff like that, you know, ass out, everything else type of things. And of course, Brian is upset, okay, with that. How she's demonstrating herself, and she's sitting here in the mother of a son, and she's demonstrating herself like an object. But from the warning, she even knew how the heck he was. She, as she said, she expected to get treated like this, and that's one thing we didn't know about. You know, some of these people, if they can, to get like maybe another, like, you know, follow-up episode with these people, like at least a year later or something, whether they, you know, good or bad, just to see, or, you know, one of them, she has had one of those episodes, I don't know, but because it was a big, you know, big hole right there as far as knowing, like, why did she have these self-esteem issues? Was she verbally abused? Was her boyfriend, people she liked, there's certain people around, or what has happened that she feels like her self-esteem is just so low to the point that she admitted, you know. And then Iyanla had to even ask her one of the questions was like, you know what, you know, do you, you know, well, you know, as far as like, how does she feel about herself? And, you know, she's eyeing this, and she feels, she admitted some way that she was a weakling and stuff like that. And she, you know, it's almost, she accepts stuff she's not supposed to accept. And Iyanla, of course, came out with that mirror because, you know, like I said, this is when she was doing kind of like almost like assessment with her, asking her questions, because they spoke with her first. Had that mirror, like, look in the mirror and see. And the first thing that she's bringing up, you know, she was like, so you're a bitch? Are you a bitch? And, you know, Erica's like, no. But man was like, okay, well then why did you follow that then? You know, why did you accept that? And that's what she was going on about. You know, she's accepted that, but we don't know where exactly they came from, or we may never know about why she feels that way, you know. But she admitted that, you know, these pictures, you know, like, you know, it's still like a thirst trap, even though we found out later on that she takes these pictures now because they help her promote her as a party promoter. So they're kind of like now, you know, like promotion, okay. But, you know, and one time when she went to go see Saigon, all of a sudden, you know, I guess, you know, this booty, she says, is not implants, even though she feels embarrassed when Vanna was asking, like, Alana was asking her, like, okay, did he pay for the booty? And she just like, I don't want to talk about it. But then Alana had to ask her, like, what is the problem? Why were you sad about it? It was kind of like, you know, this thing of she never really got into why she had to say. She just said it was, I don't know if she got the, you know, the inject Brazilian buff lip, inject the ass. I think that's reminded what she got, and, you know, whatever. But she was quite ashamed, even though she obviously has issues with her body. So, but yeah, that's her story. Yeah, but, you know. So, to make a long story short, let's go with the Saigon thing, and then we'll get into the meat of the thing of right now as they are. So, Saigon, like I said, he has been in systems, you know, since, you know, he has served 7 years, I think, what he was saying, for 14 to 22 in jail. And he was saying that his, like I said, when his dad was present in his life, he barely seen them. And it turns out later on that he used to actually, like when he did see his mom, now this is what it said, he's reflecting basically what he's seen of his father and putting that on to how he treats women, besides that, you know, whatever other anger issues that he has that we didn't get shown later on when he, and Adam told him to go to a psychotherapist that specializes in anger management and co-parenting, which he still needs to continuously see, and possibly may have to get meds, you know, on some real stuff. Okay, so he met his mom, his dad. He you know, he resented his dad the way he treated his mom, as far as how he talked to her, doing stuff like that. But yet he carries the same behavior and has carried that on into his adulthood. Okay. And it may explain, because, you know, he never brings up the other child's mother, but I don't think, from what he gathered, he has a good relation with either one of these moms, okay? The other mom was like, I ain't putting my son on this darn show, Love and Hip Hop show, that is okay. So, that seems to be his problem. But that's not the interesting thing there. He apologized, but he never went into detail about why he did this foul shit. Now, after, I guess it was between, either after they finished Love and Hip Hop or the reunion or whatever, and maybe after she's been putting up these photos, Mr. Saigon / Brian decided to sit here and put a photo up, which he must have put up real fast, because I didn't see any of these blogs and nobody else has brought it up, about Saigon putting a photo where basically Erica's giving some song, you know, song, you know, song, you know, some song, some, you know, some attention or some oral attention, and he puts the photo on, I think it looked like, based on the screen, it was almost blurred, it looked like it possibly could have been on Instagram, then he puts it down. But, you know, what was the justification of that? I don't know if you're saying, fuck you bitch, I'm going to put this on here, and you already putting photos, you already, so I'll show you how you really are. You play with me, I, you know, play with, you know, and there's no justification for that. So, that's another major problem. And then, you know, eventually after she talks to some of both, so she has Erica, you know, meet up with Saigon. They haven't talked really, I think, since after the reunion, after the, you know, we seen that reunion, okay? And so the minute we get there, Erica already seems somewhat upset, because, you know, she always keeps saying that he bullies her, and of course she's still upset about him putting that picture up, which is understandable, despite, you know, she was having, you know, the booty pictures and stuff she has, okay? It was still crossing the line of him putting it on there. So he sat there and was saying, because, you know, Vanna, you know, sat by him and was saying, what do you see? And this is when he was sitting there, because even when he met Vanna, like I said, he was all on a level positive woosah side. So he sat there and said, like, you know, he sees this woman, the mother of the child, he loves both her and his son, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as she was saying, so Erica's already trying to interject her comment, like, you know what, I don't forget, I don't believe this, blah, 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 this and here, and look, this and this, and she already's about to try to walk up and say, I can't take this, almost like the same thing we seen part 2, this is like part 2, when we seen them on the Love and Hip Hop reunion, if y'all seen that, was the same thing, and she's about to walk off again when he's, you know, when he's talking, and you're, you know, tempted to him, but it's like, he's not talking to you, he's talking to me, you sit down, put your big girl panties on, some stuff, whatever, right? So we have that. So when she decides to talk to both of them, and they see the footage, and you just see them again, well, we've seen, unfortunately, the whole entire season, them arguing. Then Saigon got the baby in his lap, and they sit just arguing. This baby just probably sinking in slowly, and then he may think, like, you know, this is okay, acceptable behavior, that he'll start yelling at folks, or the little girl, he has a crush on whatever case it may be, and sitting here and, you know, start yelling at her because he wants her crayons. You know, I'm just saying that just because he's little like that does not mean that, you know, it still can be imitated and reflect his behavior, you know, and, you know, shows there. So, one of the things also, we get the backstory more about their relationship, so to speak, or lack thereof, besides it being a physical and, you know, like, I get off type of thing. So, throughout the time of the relationship, like I said, they both got drunk and decided in that moment that he wasn't going to use protection, and he usually used to using protection, and then, you know, he, you know, then all of a sudden, you know, I guess he left, and, you know, we're hearing both sides, but he didn't see her no time when she was pregnant. He said he was going to be there for her, but he wanted shots of the you know, that she was pregnant, and, you know, Van was like, why you didn't go over there, something like, what you need photos for? And then it turns out he didn't know even this girl's address. So like I said, it was just like how messed up it is. But like I said, she didn't have to put herself in a predicament. She wanted to choose Brian to be her child's father and to get pregnant. And this is a situation she could have avoided, but the child is here, and this bickering between both of them is unhealthy for the baby to be in that environment. So of course it has to come up with a solution about what it needs to be done, everything else. But like I said, Erica at first, when she's pointing some Saigon Street in a certain way, but you have to look at where, let her know, like, you have to be responsible for your own behavior. Like, yeah, it's true that it is. He found some ways, but you gotta admit, like, you have done stuff you ain't supposed to do, and vice versa. Okay? I know I'm probably getting ahead of myself and probably chopping and heading, but you know how this goes. So, after that, the next day, because she had told Erica that she can be like a mother figure, at least like be a mom, kind of like a life coach at the moment, to her, and they have some mommy time about her situation, about how with the baby and how she feels about herself. So about that time, that's what I'm saying, when he goes Saigon the next day, goes see the psychotherapist, and he admits that his anger issues are the reason why he has problems with relationships, with both, I guess, his children. He didn't say exactly how many children, but with his children, period. And he needs to work on that. I thought we were going to go a little more detail, showing the conversation. Maybe the psychotherapist, for confidential reasons, maybe they didn't want to film or what it went down in the session. So, next minute we know, like I said, I guess it's the next day afterwards, and they're still somewhat on good terms. They can at least be in the room for 2 seconds, not like any more extra footing or argument, any more argument. So, and Iyanla lets, they have like this little sign of sheets as far as working towards being better parents, and, working for Steve, stuff like that. Because, again, got to mention earlier that Brian admitted also to what also hurted him was right before she had the baby. Now, he asked it because he was kind of excited about being a dad, I guess, that he wanted the child to be named Junior, okay? She named him Steven, though, I guess, on purpose, so he already felt bitter about that. And then when she was 9 months pregnant, she's basically like, you know what, you don't need to be in our lives, because I guess when she, was in labor, she basically like, we don't need you in our lives, another man gonna raise your child, and, she admitted that she said that. So in both ends, even though there's still really is wrong with the Saigon, both of them in the way is kind of like, this is toxic, So when they sit there and do this little thing, and they're kind of like kumbaya, and they seem to be both on better terms, then it seemed like you kind of started seeing things kind of like rise up, and not in a good way again, the tension again, because when as far as like setting these parent goals or whatever certificate, or doing a certain stuff for the sake of their son, whatever, right? So, she's supposed to go out of town, right, y'all? And Saigon, it's like, well, can I see my son for the weekend, whatever? And she's just kind of like, well, I already made arrangements with my neighbor named Robin and stuff like that she gonna watch him. She never just said flat out no, but she just like, okay, since I already made arrangements, but she don't want to flat out say like, no, I don't trust your angry ass around my kid, or I don't feel safe the kid being around you, or something, whatever, right? It just seemed like that to me, okay? Then, because I don't think I don't think they ever mentioned this, and even if y'all watch the show, it just seemed like when he sees the child, he has never had one-on-one time with the child, I don't think. At least that's what I'm getting from it. So when he's, because she has been town to Monday, then I think Vanzant and both Brian was saying, like, can I see the child, the following week afterwards? And again, she like, I don't know, we didn't talk about this first, and blah, 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 and we have to see this here, whatever. And I had to make sure this is here, and I had to make mascara, and everything else, whatever excuses that she was making, you knew that she felt uncomfortable about having the child around her, because she doesn't feel comfortable enough of having little man around his daddy. There's a lot of layer issues. And then, because man's like, okay, we can just take a bit. Can you at least have it where, as far as when it comes to child care, he was the first one that he calls and on the list. She's like, yes. But I already knew, like, her body language is basically just like, this is kind of like, whatever. Because even though Saigon apologized for, like I said, putting their intimate moments online and stuff like that, and Erica was saying like she was going to, have to go as far as like being on, thirsty or the attention whore stuff on Instagram. I was still, even though it seemed like it was a cool moment, you were starting to see the tension, and then unfortunately we see the credits. I probably skip a couple things, but I kind of like, hopefully I highlight that for y'all. But yeah, let's go to what really happened afterwards. Erica and Saigon, after that, Saigon says he's tried several attempts to call about his child, but she said because there have been more heated arguments, she does not want to allow him to see the child. And better yet, she just went to court to request about, I guess, I don't know, about, his visitation rights and stuff. I don't know if she's trying to get it revoked. I forgot exactly what it was said, but it was just in terms just now as far as like, it's like she's trying to, they're back to where it was, where he wasn't hardly to none, to large to little to none seeing, his son at all. And because that's how bad, like I said, he tried several attempts, and she's still on there showing ass on Instagram, and that's unfortunately how the same thing is. But like I said, she's trying to justify now because it gets her coins in the thing. Because they were talking about earlier when they were arguing, there's footage I guess they did maybe prior to before she got in touch with them back again, and they were arguing something about money. They were yelling so much you didn't know what the hell they were talking about, because she's talking about, you had this here, you haven't given me no money, blah blah blah, and he's doing this and this and something, and I gave you this here, something about 500, 700, something, this, just was just a shouting match. I just had to shake my head. It was interesting. It was sad, but an interesting thing to watch at the same time, because you kind of know where this stuff is coming from, but it's like, like I said, they have to admit to themselves that they still need to get individual counseling in order to focus, in order to continue, because if not, the opportunity is, the opportunity of Stephen having a healthy relationship with both parents, but not just that, it shouldn't have to be continue on, because like I said, Erica obviously still suffers from whatever self-esteem issues, because like I said, Saigon had brought up earlier, because Evan had asked him like, when did you realize like, this problem? He's just like, I think one day, like I said, with the altar booty, and he noticed that, or I think that's what he was referring to, and she admitted she had self-esteem issues, and that's what Van was telling, like, what, you got to be careful. You sit here and you let people take your power, and then turn around and flip it and be victim and feel victimized and stuff. And it's like, you hold the key, it's your power, get your crown, okay, and keep it on there, heck. So anyways, y'all, I hope you have a pleasant week, pleasant night, pleasant weekend. I know it's awkward to say, but it's already today, but happy Mother's Day to, happy Mother's Day. Not just the mothers, the aunties, the cousins help raising out, just the women in the community to help raise the generations, you know what I mean? And just to everybody, because, just neighbors, big sisters, everybody, even dads had to step in, or, you know what I mean? But anyway, y'all have a pleasant week, pleasant night, weekend. I probably have said it again, but yeah, I think I might do Married to Medicine tomorrow. I'm not even gonna wait till Monday. But anyway, y'all take care.